Taoism says the self is a temporary whirlpool in the river. Buddhism says the self is wind passing through hollow bamboo. Vedanta says the self is the ocean pretending to be a drop. Stoicism says the self is the only fortress you truly control. How can something so fundamental be described in such opposite ways? Before we dive in, let's make sure we're speaking the same language. When these ancient traditions talk about the self, they use words that can sound foreign or mystical, but the ideas are simple. The Tao is the flowing, ever-changing process that underlies everything in reality. Think of it as the current of existence itself. Atman is what Vedanta calls your true self, the eternal consciousness that never changes. Brahman is the universal self, infinite reality itself. Anatta is Buddhism's radical claim that there is no permanent self at all, no solid, unchanging you to be found. And prohairesis, that's the Stoic term for your ruling faculty, your power to choose how you respond to life. These aren't just abstract ideas. They're four completely different answers to the question, who are you? Here is a story from the Taoist master Zhuangzi. Once, Zhuangzi dreamed he was a butterfly fluttering freely, happily going wherever it pleased, completely unaware it was Zhuangzi. Suddenly, he woke up, and there he was, solidly and unmistakably Zhuangzi. But now he didn't know. Was he Zhuangzi who had dreamed he was a butterfly, or was he a butterfly, now dreaming it was Zhuangzi? Between Zhuangzi and the butterfly, there must be some distinction. This is what we call the transformation of things. We live in a strange time for identity. You wake up and check your phone. There you are. Your profile, your photos, your posts, a curated version of yourself, frozen in pixels. Therapy tells you to find your true self, as if it's hiding somewhere waiting to be discovered. Neuroscience tells you the self is just a story your brain tells itself, a convenient fiction. You try to figure out who you really are beneath all the roles you play: employee, parent, friend, citizen. But the more you look, the less solid it seems. If you're not your thoughts, because thoughts come and go, and if you're not your body, because your body is constantly changing, and if you're not your achievements, because those can be taken away, then what are you? This isn't just philosophy. This is the crisis of modern life. We've lost the center. We don't know what to hold on to. When everything shifts. Or ancient traditions looked at this same question and came up with four radically different answers. And here's what makes this fascinating. They can't all be right. Or maybe they can. Let's find out. Taoism begins with a simple observation. Nothing stays still. The river flows. The seasons turn. Your body changes every day. Cells die. New ones are born. Your thoughts arise and vanish like clouds. Even your personality shifts depending on who you're with, what you've eaten, how much sleep you got. So where in all this change is the self? Taoism says, nowhere and everywhere. The self isn't a thing. It's a process. Think of a whirlpool in a river. It has a shape. It has a location. You can point to it and say, there it is. But is it a separate thing from the river? No. It's just the river doing what rivers do, swirling, forming patterns, then letting them go. You are like that whirlpool. You're not separate from the flow of life. You're a temporary pattern in it. The Taoists have a concept called wu wei, which means acting without force, without resistance. Applied to the self, it means this. Stop trying to be someone. Stop grasping at a fixed identity. The moment you say, I am this kind of person, you've created a cage. Life keeps flowing, but you're trying to freeze one moment and call it you. Another concept, D, is your inner power, your natural virtue. But here's the paradox. D only emerges when you stop forcing yourself to be something. When you let go of the need to have a solid self, your true nature flows effortlessly. Zhuangzi, one of the great Taoist philosophers, once wrote, "The fish trap exists because of the fish. Once you've gotten the fish, you can forget the trap. Words exist because of meaning. Once you've gotten the meaning, you can forget the words. Where can I find a man who has forgotten words, so I can have a word with him? What does this mean? It means we get so caught up in the labels. I am a doctor. I am a mother. I am successful. I am broken, that we forget these are just words, just traps trying to catch something that cannot be caught. The self is the meaning behind the words, and it's always moving. Picture a flame moving through a field of dry grass. Is it the same flame that started the fire? The flame has no substance. It doesn't exist on its own. It's just a process, heat, meeting fuel, meeting oxygen. It consumes the grass and moves on. You look at it and say, that's a flame. But there's no thing there. Only a process happening. You are that flame. Not a solid object moving through time, but a process unfolding moment by moment. Here's a small practice you can try right now. Notice this. The you reading this sentence is not the same you who started reading this episode. Your breath has changed. Your thoughts have shifted. Blood has moved through your body. Cells have died and been replaced. So what stayed the same? The Taoist answer is, nothing stayed the same. And that's exactly as it should be. Now Vedanta comes along and says, wait, you're looking in the wrong place. Yes, your body changes. Yes, your thoughts change. Yes, your emotions, your circumstances, your memories, all of it changes. But there is something that doesn't change. There is something watching all these changes. That something is your true self, what Vedanta calls Atman. And here's the radical claim, that self is not small, not limited, not separate. Your true self is identical to Brahman, the infinite reality that underlies everything. You are not a drop in the ocean. You are the ocean, mistaking itself for a drop. Vedanta says the reason you suffer, the reason you feel lost, is because you've misidentified yourself. You've confused your true self with your ego, what they call ahamkara. The ego is the voice in your head that says, I am this body, I am these thoughts, I am this story. But that's a case of mistaken identity. You are not the character in the story. You are the awareness, reading the story. Vedanta has a method called neti, which means not this, not this. You go through everything you think you are and eliminate it, not the body that changes and decays, not the thoughts, those come and go, not the emotions, those rise and fall like waves. What's left when you've stripped everything away? Pure awareness. The witness, the sakshi. That unchanging consciousness that's always been here, watching everything unfold. The Chandogya Upanishad contains one of the most famous sentences in all of Indian philosophy. Tat tavam asi. It means that thou art. You are that. You are not a small separate self. You are the infinite self, pretending to be small for a while, like an actor who gets so absorbed in a role they forget they're acting. Try this inquiry right now. Who is aware of your thoughts? Close your eyes for a moment if you can. Watch a thought appear. Any thought. Now ask, who is watching that thought? If you can observe your thoughts, you cannot be your thoughts. You must be something prior to thought, something deeper. So who is the observer? Vedanta says, that observer is your true self, and that self is not personal. It's universal. It's the same self. Looking out through every pair of eyes. Here's a practice. Repeat this silently, and see what happens. I am not the body. I am not the mind. I am the awareness, witnessing both. Don't just say the words. Feel into them. Where is the one who's aware? Now Buddhism enters the conversation and says, you're both wrong. Taoism is right that everything changes, but wrong to call it a self. Vedanta is wrong to say there's an eternal witness. There is no self at all, not a changing self, not an eternal self. This is the teaching of anatta, which means no self. And this might be the most difficult idea in all of philosophy, because it goes against everything we feel. We feel like there's a me in here, looking out at the world. But Buddhism says, look closer. That feeling is an illusion. Buddhism breaks down what you call yourself into 5 heaps, 5 aggregates called skandhas. First, form, your physical body. Second, sensation, the raw feelings of pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. Third, perception, recognizing and labeling things. Fourth, mental formations, thoughts, emotions, intentions. Fifth, consciousness, the bare awareness of something happening. Now here's the question. Which one of these is you? Your body? No. That changes constantly and will eventually die. Your sensations? No. Those come and go every second. Your perceptions? No, those depend on conditions. Your thoughts? No, you don't control those, they just appear. Your consciousness? No. Even that arises depending on conditions. If you have no eyes, no visual consciousness arises. If you have no ears, no auditory consciousness arises. So where in these 5 heaps is the self? Buddhism says, nowhere. The self is like a bundle of sticks tied together. You can point to the bundle and call it a self. But if you untie the bundle, there's no bundle anymore, just sticks. The self is a convenient label for a collection of changing processes. It's useful for getting through the day, but it's not real in the way you think it is. This is different from Taoism. Taoism says, you're a process in the flow, don't cling to it. Buddhism says, there's no you doing the flowing, there's just flowing. The difference is subtle, but profound. Taoism keeps a kind of self, even if it's fluid. Buddhism erases it completely. The Dhammapada, one of Buddhism's most loved texts, says it plainly. All conditioned things are impermanent. All conditioned things are unsatisfactory. All phenomena are not self. Everything that arises passes away. Everything that passes away was never solid enough to call a self. Here's a moment of observation you can try. Watch a thought arise in your mind. Any thought. Where did it come from? You don't know. It just appeared. Now watch it dissolve. Where did it go? You don't know. It just vanished. If you were the one creating your thoughts, you'd know where they come from. You'd have control over them. But you don't. So who is thinking? Buddhism says, there's no who. There's just thinking, happening. For 30 seconds, try this practice. Try to find the thinker behind your thoughts. Look very closely. Don't just assume there's someone there. Actually look. What do you find? If you're honest, you find thoughts arising and passing, but no thinker, no solid entity pulling the strings, just a flow of mental events, each one causing the next, with no central author. Then Stoicism arrives with a completely different answer. The Stoics say, of course there's a self, and it's the most important thing about you. It's your prohairesis, your ruling faculty, your power to choose. Everything external can be taken from you. Your health, your wealth, your reputation, your loved ones, even your body. But no one can take away your ability to choose how you respond. That choice, that inner citadel of reason and will, that's who you are. The Stoics believed that humans participate in the logos, the rational order of the universe. Your self is not some mysterious, unchanging witness. It's not a temporary pattern in a flow. It's your rational nature, your capacity to think, to judge, to choose virtue over vice. The self is moral. It's defined not by what happens to you, but by how you respond to what happens to you. You are your character, and character is built through choice. Epictetus, who was once a slave before becoming one of history's greatest philosophers, wrote, "What is the task of virtue? to make the will harmonious with nature. And what is nature? Rational and social. For the Stoics, being human means being rational and being connected to others. Yourself is that rational, social nature. Everything else is just decoration. Here's a Stoic mental exercise. Strip away everything external. Imagine your body ages and weakens. That's not you. That's just the body. Imagine you lose all your possessions. Those were never you. Those were just things. Imagine your reputation is destroyed. That's just other people's opinions, not you. What remains? Your capacity to choose. Your ability to decide, in each moment, whether you'll act with wisdom or foolishness, with courage or cowardice, with justice or selfishness. That capacity, that's the Stoic self. And it's the only thing you truly control. Try this small test. Imagine someone insults you harshly. Your body reacts, your heart rate increases, your face flushes, your emotions flare, anger, hurt, shame. But then there's a pause, even if it's just a fraction of a second. In that pause, you have a choice. You can lash out, you can walk away, you can laugh, you can inquire. That moment of choice, that space between stimulus and response, that's the Stoic self. That's where you live. Now let's put these 4 philosophies to the test with a real scenario. Imagine you suffer a traumatic brain injury. When you wake up, your memories are gone. You don't remember your childhood, your education, your relationships. Your personality has changed too. You used to be cautious. Now you're reckless. You used to be kind. Now you're irritable. Your family visits you in the hospital and someone whispers, "He's not the same person anymore." What would each tradition say? The Taoist would say, of course you're not the same person. You were never the same person twice. The river flows on. Yesterday's water is gone. Why cling to it? Why expect it to return? The person you were is as gone as yesterday's sunset. A new pattern is formed in the stream. That's not a tragedy. That's just what rivers do. The problem isn't the change. The problem is the expectation that something should have stayed the same. Vedanta would say, your memories changed. Yes. Your personality changed. Yes. But the witness remains. The one who's aware that memories are gone. That awareness hasn't changed. You are still the Atman, the unchanging consciousness observing all these changes. The contents of your consciousness have shifted, but consciousness itself has not. You've lost the story, but the storyteller is still here. The role's changed, but the actor is still present. You are not what you remember. You are what remembers. Buddhism would say, there was no person to lose. What you call a person is just a collection of aggregates, memories, personality traits, habits, preferences. Those aggregates arose depending on conditions. Now the conditions have changed, so the aggregates have changed. There was never a solid self holding them together. There was only the process of arising and passing. Suffering comes from believing there was something permanent that could be lost. But nothing was ever permanent to begin with. Grief is understandable, but it's based on a misunderstanding. You're mourning the loss of something that was never there. The Stoic would say, my body changed, my memories changed, but my prohairesis remains. Can I still reason? Can I still choose? If I've lost the capacity to think and choose, then yes, I've lost what makes me human. But if I retain the ability to make moral choices, to decide how I'll respond to this new situation, then I haven't lost myself. I've lost my past, but I haven't lost my agency. And agency is identity. The question isn't, who was I? The question is, who will I choose to be now? You can see where they converge. All 4 traditions reject the idea that you are your body, or your circumstances, or your social status. None of them would say yourself is your job title, or your bank account, or your Instagram following. They agree that most of what we identify with is not essential, but where they contradict each other is profound. Vedanta says the self is eternal, infinite, real, the only thing that's truly real. Buddhism says the self is empty, impermanent, illusory. Mistaking it for something real causes all suffering. Taoism says don't even ask the question. Just flow with the Tao and let go of all fixed ideas. Stoicism says the self is your moral agency, your power to choose virtue. And that's as real as anything gets. So what do we do with these contradictions? Perhaps they're describing different aspects of the same mystery. Vedanta describes what remains constant when everything else changes. Buddhism describes what changes when nothing remains constant. Taoism describes the process between arising and ceasing, the flow itself. Stoicism describes the only part of this whole process that you actually control, your response, your choice, your will. Maybe they're all true from different angles, like four people describing an elephant while touching different parts of it. Or perhaps they're genuinely incompatible. Perhaps you must choose. Do you believe there's an eternal witness observing all changes? Or do you believe witnessing itself is empty? Just another process arising and ceasing? Is your identity something to dissolve into the Tao, surrendering all boundaries? Or is it something to fortify with reason and virtue, strengthening your inner citadel? The answer isn't academic. It reveals what you truly believe, not by what you say in conversations, but by how you live when identity shatters. When you lose your job, when a relationship ends, when your body fails you, when the story you've been telling about yourself collapses, what do you reach for? Do you flow? Do you witness? Do you observe emptiness? Do you choose virtue? Your answer in that moment is your real philosophy. If you lost your memories, your body, your name, everything you think of as you, what would you be willing to call I? What would remain that you'd recognize as yourself? Or would there be nothing to recognize? That question doesn't have a right answer, but it has your answer. And that matters more than any ancient text. The self might be an illusion, a process, a witness, or a choice. But there's one thing all four traditions agree you have, whether it's real or not: desire, the wanting, the craving, the fire inside you that reaches for pleasure and pushes away pain. And what you do with that fire changes everything. Next video we're going to talk about desire. Is it enemy or fuel to your life? See you there.